It is good to have you back. Stories of police brutality are rampant in Nigeria, but Africa's largest democratic country. Two-thirds of its estimated 200 million people are below the ages of 30, and many will have certain fear for police officers they see on the street. In this report, Galaxy's Daniel Tinimo takes a look at the role of lawyers and human rights the roles they have to play in the fight against extrajudicial activities of Nigerian police. The report.
What is your name? What is your name? John. I don't go work. I should go work. I just pass for a year.
Nigerian human rights activists in the past have stood their grounds to address the root cause of the extrajudicial killings of unarmed citizens by law enforcement officers in the country. It is already imprinted in every mind of the citizens that hundreds of young people have been killed at illegal checkpoint mounted by drunk police and military personnel, which in 2020 resulted to EndSARS protest which claimed lives of both the citizens and the police. The Nigerian government has acknowledged these problems and promised to address them in the past. But to date, police brutality and extrajudicial killings have continued with no real accountability.
No function again in this country. And press no function again in this country. You against the show.
The failure of the Nigerian government to actualize real police reforms makes young people afraid to step out of their homes in a bid to not become victims of torture, extortion, harassment and extrajudicial killings. In some places, the huge amount of money extorted from motorists via the checkpoint is allegedly shared by police and military officers. Hence, the cancellation of checkpoint by successive inspectors general of police have never been faithfully enforced.
And you want us to serve us? Buhari government has turned Nigerians. You will need prison for 1 million.
Speaking virtually to human rights activist and executive director, Rule of Law and Accountability Advocacy Center, Okechukwu Nwanguma, he says it is the obligation of the state to protect human rights and the government is not ensuring effective and impartial investigation of extrajudicial killings in Nigeria.
Nigeria, as a member of the international community, has certain obligations, voluntarily undertaking obligations to promote and protect human rights, which includes, and these obligations are contained in various international human rights treaties that Nigeria is signatory to. And of course, Nigerian locally, under the Nigerian constitution, the government has a responsibility to promote and protect human rights. And that includes ensuring effective, prompt, independent, and impartial investigation of every case of extrajudicial killing or torture.
A legal practitioner, Adetunji Adedoyin Adeniyi, notes that whenever there are protests against the unlawful killing of citizens by police personnel, the government moves to subdue tensions by setting judicial or administrative commissions of inquiry to probe the remote and immediate causes of the civil disturbances. But the recommendations of such panel are usually ignored by the government.
We should be receiving day-to-day briefing on what has happened, and all officers, everybody, nobody should be given rifle, guns without not being properly monitored. So I think government needs to do a lot. It's not just about setting up panel. Panel cannot bring back the dead. We need to see that justice has been served. And not just that, the family of the deceased need to be heavily compensated.
Wanguma added that the government lacked political will to implement various police reforms committees to ensure proper welfare for the police, and noted that the recruitment process needed to be addressed.
Problem is not, want of knowledge of what the problems are, but it is lack of political will to apply the solutions as contained in the recommendations of various reform committees. So as long as government is willing to, for example, the president talked about prioritizing the welfare of police officers. So how can you be talking about prioritizing welfare of police officers when government is owing police officers 6 months arrears of salaries? You cannot keep police officers hungry and expect them not to misbehave.
Adeniyi calls for expedited trial of all police brutality and extrajudicial cases so that justice can be served speedily.
Firstly, there should be a dedicated court, dedicated criminal court, not just dedicated. There should be expedited trial, because in some cases, some avenue argued that it's in self-defense, but for you to say there is self-defense, in most of the things we have referred or people called extrajudicial, you realize that the deceased or the victim involved, they are always without like no arm or anything, no weapon, nothing. So why do you have to kill the person?
A victim of police brutality, name withheld, recounts his ordeal in the hands of some officers of the law.
In May 2018, I was arrested on my way coming home from Riaza, church Riaza. So I got to a bus stop, and a bus stop called Amikonle, and I was trying to move to my house. Then the woman just pointed me that I came to rob them, whereas I was not the one who robbed them. So the husband had to call two SARS officials to come and arrest me from Federal SARS Keja. So they took me down to their cell at Keja, and they tortured me with the machete. They gave me almost 30 flogs of machete, the side of machete at my back. So after that, the second day, I slept in the cell 1. The second day, they brought me out again. They were like 5, punching me, kicking me. Where is my gun? Where are the people we robbed together? This, and I insisted I'm not a robber. I'm a musician. So they took me back to the cell. Where then from there they took me to court. They charged me to court. On the following Monday, they charged me to court. So from court, they took me to the prison. That's Jangbadi prison. Yeah. So the prison there, I stayed 3 months. 3 months in the prison. Then after that, God discharged me and acquitted me. So I came out of the prison through Madam Betty Haba. She's the founder of CEO Nigeria. She's a human rights activist, and she was the one God used, because she publicized the matter or the case on Punch paper. So when the magistrate saw the story on Punch paper, he was even scared, so he had to discharge me and acquit me.
Wow. Were there any compensation from the police?
Not at all.
Nobody compensated?
No compensation yet.
Wanguma and Adeniyi added that Nigeria's leadership must pay serious attention to police reform if it hopes to succeed in restoring public safety and to avoid a repeat of NSAS protests in the country.
Government didn't seem to have learned any lesson. Both government, and when I talk government, I mean both the political authority and the police authorities, they didn't seem to have learned any lessons from NSAS, because NSAS was a strong message, to Nigerian authorities that citizens had got to the limit of their tolerance for police violence, and that if citizens may be compelled to take to rebellion if human rights is not protected by the rule of law. So a lot of what happened, what led to NSAS, continue to happen today. Even though SARS was disbanded as part of the demands by the NSAS, there are many other units within the police which are still carrying out the same atrocities, behaving in the same way that SARS of old, was behaving.
For example, like this officer that killed somebody, because I wasn't there, but it's clear that if justice is seen to have been served very fast, such will be deterred. It won't happen again. The government need to take serious action. In fact, Nigeria is indeed very lucky that the death of our colleague, which is quite painful, has not generated into something else. So government needs to act very fast, and not just that, the actions of the government is exact thing that is going to appease the mind of the populace.